every step we take is in the direction of helping people make more money, which will feed families, put children through college, sustain homes, keep us fed, clothed, and successful. And what is success if you can't share it with your family and loved ones? And that's what we're all about here. So introduce yourselves. Go for it.
Age before beauty.
Now here I was going to be polite. So, Frank Aaron, I was a former tractor trailer driver who actually went bankrupt trying to make money online back in the mid 90s. Once I got everything figured out and got the right advice on what to do and how to do it, I was able to come home full time in 8 months and 2 days. I've been unemployable since was August the 4th, 1996, George. And I love it. And I love helping people. So I'm really happy that this podcast kind of is happening because I have so much to say about so many things. And I enjoy working in the collaboration. I think it's important to get more than one viewpoint, more than one opinion on anything, really, if you're going to take advice, you know. So I think we're like-minded, but we also have 3 different life experiences and backgrounds. So I'm looking forward to this, hopefully as much as the audience is, you know.
Jones, otherwise known as TBone Jones. I am a serial entrepreneur in the digital marketing space. I guess my story is kind of that for most of my young and like teenage and young adult life is I didn't really know what direction I wanted to go in. And not to knock traditional educational institutions, but they're not great for entrepreneurs. They're great for many other careers, many other talents, but really not conducive to entrepreneurship. So that's what conversion chemistry is all about, is being that informal guerrilla style education for entrepreneurs to nurture that adventurous side, to allow me to not make an employer rich, but to make those around me rich while making myself wealthy at the same time. And to piggyback on both of your points, you know, we do share definitely that Napoleon Hill abundance type mindset, growth mindset, with 3 very distinct backgrounds.
I despise being pitched. I hate being sold to. I go to make a reservation, you know, like for a weekend reservation at a Hilton hotel, and I get pitched for a like, we'll give you 1 night free if I can just transfer you over to our timeshare department, and you only have to listen to them for 5 minutes. There's no obligation to buy, but we'll give you a free night at any Hilton, like whatever. I'm like,
I will pay
right.
them to not listen to that.
Yeah, exactly. Versus prospecting. Prospecting is so friggin' hard. It's so hard. Talk about that, Frank.
Well, it is and it isn't, because it's hard in the beginning, at least for me, George, speaking from my experience. I started out, what got me home was a combination of the internet and network marketing. So when you're talking about card decks and printed mailings and all, I mean, 1995, 1996, I was probably handling $10,000 a month back then in card deck co-ops and, you know, newspaper advertising and such. You know, it's opportunity magazines, I should say. So yeah, the first time I got on the phone, and of course I didn't have a cell phone back then either, but let's pretend this was a real phone. I was like, oh, it's 10,000 pounds pushing it up to my ear just to make that first phone call, and I'm going to be sick, and you know. And after a while, hell, man, you do it in your sleep. I could talk to anybody driving backwards and blindfolded in my sleep, and you just get good at it. But it's, some people can do it and some people can't. You know, I think how I learned everything I learned in this business of, well, you know, internet marketing and real estate investing, I learned as a kid, a 14-year-old kid delivering newspapers, you know, asking the people where they wanted their paper, what time they wanted it delivered, when was the best time to collect my money on Friday or Saturday, and that type of thing. And then same thing being a truck driver. I learned how to talk to people. One good thing about driving a truck is, A, you're not looked at very highly, which is a damn shame because it is a profession. And B, people don't care because they're not going to see you again. So I used to walk into a place, they'd say, you know, all right, go from New Jersey to New Hampshire. And then when you're done there, we got to load to Knoxville, Tennessee for you. We have to do all that on your own, man. You got to watch out for low bridges. You got to make sure you're not going to run out of fuel. When you get to a place, you don't know which door to back into. So you got to pull up and say, hey, I'm Frank. I'm with Roberts Express or PJax or whoever I was working for at the time. And I think people, all that benefited me. And I think a lot of people think that prospecting is harder than it needs to be. Of course, you're going to get jerks. I still get jerks today in real estate, but they're the jerk. I'm not the jerk. So why am I going to take on their jerkiness? It's like, you are the weakest link, next lead. That's how I look at it. So I'm one of those people, man. Plug me into a good qualified lead list. I'm happy to do it all day long. Just slam the phone, just next, because there's money out there. And by doing the things that most people are unwilling to do is where the money shows up. And unwilling to do is even starting a podcast. Unwilling to do is even 3 to 5 hours a week carved out for your own business. These are the things that I'm nobody special. I mean, George, I used to have when I started my business, I used to have my ex-wife have to turn my computer on and show me how to save like an Excel document. I'd be like, Marie, I'm done with this. Help me save this. I mean, but I was still making money, There's some kind of mystical, leprechaun on their shoulders that's just casting out money bills for them. But it's not that. You do the work and you plan the work, you work the plan, at least as far as I'm concerned. And everybody I've walked with for any length of time in my business career has been the same way. You show up, you do the work, and it gets easier every time.
I think you showed your age with one thing. Frank, there's a generation of young people out there right now who have no idea what a card deck is.
Yeah, they're all gone. Well, those are those postcard mailers. Picture a bunch of postcards coming in a saran wrap. Yeah, coming in a saran wrap package, and it'd be all these different opportunities, sell this, join this MLM, become a distributor for this import-export company and this and that. And we used to get leads, and the leads would come back, and I'd work them. As a matter of fact, George, I pretty much wound up working most everybody's leads in the co-op because people just couldn't do it. And for the life of me, I don't understand why. Because for me, talking on the phone is as natural as talking in person. It's just something that I got good at. I don't particularly, quite frankly, I'd rather be sitting under a palm tree somewhere with a nice beer in my hand right now. So it's not that I was born to do this, but I learned to love it, and I learned to be proud of my accomplishments. And I don't mean that in a vain way, but it's pretty cool when you go from being a bankrupt truck driver to like #1 distributor or #1 affiliate or #1 recruiter, and people are giving you bonus checks. And I remember doing prepaid legal. We got a free trip to Cancun, Mexico, all expenses paid. They were paying for our minivan. It was like $400 a month towards a car payment. An average person can do that. I'm not necessarily saying network marketing alone, because right now I'm not really involved in anything network marketing, haven't been for a long time. But I'll tell you what, you want to go through a good personal growth program, it's either going to make you or break you, network marketing. Yeah. There's no middle ground. You're either going to take to it and grow, or you're going to be like, this is ridiculous. I can't do this. Nobody wants this. So
I like that. Well, and you said my favorite buzzwords: former bankrupt truck driver from New Jersey. So I always wait for that line, and I love it. I love it. And I like how you say that, only because it's in direct contrast to what you are now, which is a successful business guy.
Yeah, and you know what? Here's my license, right? My current PA license. I still renew my CDL. I've got Class A, and I've got tankers and doubles. So I can still drive today.
Wow.
Matter of fact, I've owned 2 antique tractor trailers and 3 antique buses over the past 20 years or so.
Wow.
When I say antiques, from the 1960s and 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep that license because I look at that and I go, you know what, man? Just in case this internet thing never works out, I can go back to driving a truck. Haven't needed that for 26 years. And B, it's don't get all up in your ass. Be humble and be decent to people. That's, my dad was an appliance repairman. I was a truck driver. I had no skills going into this. I've been blessed. I've had a lot of good people help me. And guys, that's one of the reasons the three of us do this for you, is because we've been blessed, and we're just, I think, paying it forward. Right, George?
That's exactly why I do it. That's exactly why I do it. And I think what happens is what seems effortless to us is not because we're particularly gifted, but because we were in the trenches, man, and we learned it. I did not get fired out of a cannon knowing how to do what I do. Man, I was forged on the anvil of experience. And everything that I am is the result of things that I've worked through. Nothing was ever given to me. Nothing, not a single thing was ever given to me. So, Jonesy, talk about prospecting. What are your thoughts about prospecting?
So I have quite a few thoughts. One, we can even refine the definition or break it into two different uh, columns of prospecting. Frank's talking about warm leads a little bit, in which case the prospect is a qualified lead or potentially qualified lead, or the act of prospecting, which is generating those leads to start with, whether it's a completely wide net being cast and trying to create that qualified lead, identifying the potential customer, or like I said, working that lead list that you've now curated. So the example of generating those prospects is door knocking, right? We were talking about that earlier. There's still a lot of door knockers out there, which is actually surprising because I've got my Ring doorbell, and if it's not somebody I'm expecting, or if it's not food being delivered, that door is probably not getting answered. So therefore, I am not a good prospect in that respect. I'm not a good target for that particular product being sold. Now, we'll get into positioning, I'm sure, in which case, when I'm looking for that product, they better be in the right position. But anyway, we're talking about prospecting. So I would say it's not for me. That high level prospecting of cold calling and generating leads is definitely not for me because I prefer to be on the positioning side. And a lot of what we talk about in our masterminds and in entrepreneurship is the why. Why do we do what we do? Because what do you want to do? What do I want to do when I get up in the morning? For now and forever, which, it doesn't have to put you into a boring routine. But what I don't want to do is be on that side of lead generation. I know I don't. So it's not something I actively pursue. But I can speak for its efficacy, for damn sure. I know people in solar making $200,000 a year by simply door knocking and setting appointments. They're not even closing deals. They're
Hey, Jonesy, not to interrupt, I just had a guy come Wednesday, a solar dude, rang the doorbell, and he's doing a neighbor to the right of me, and so after he comes to his house Monday, he's going to come over to our house, and we've looked at it before, solar, so there is still a market for door to door. We also up until a few years ago, we had a door to door guy selling gourmet meats and stuff out of a refrigerated truck. Like oh my God, the meat was so good. Like your chicken, and you're buying it, you're paying more up front, but the serving proportions and the quality and all. So there are still people out there doing it the old school way for sure.
Yeah, look, if the meat man's coming to my door with some good quality stuff, that may change my rhetoric on whether or not I'm answering that door. But at that point, I'm now the good target, which is what it all comes back to. You're casting a wide net and trying to create that lead. And another one, like when every time there's a storm, you got the roof people come out and start knocking. They wouldn't do it if it didn't work. But it is an absolute process. There's another P. All these words we use within marketing, product, place, promotion, price, prospecting, positioning. It's all the P's for some reason. But anyway, so back to prospecting. It is something that we all have to do at some point or another. Take, for example, networking. Even in the space that I'm in, I don't go out actively selling and trying to get clients. We do it through positioning. However, I do a lot of networking, and I take the approach with the low expectations opportunity, which is going to any particular networking meeting, whether it's educational, whether it's a happy hour, business card exchange, doesn't matter. I'm not there to sell, and I'm definitely not there to be sold to. If the opportunity comes up, great, that's a good side benefit. But my process for that is a quick introduction, 30-second pitch, ask the person I'm talking to do the same, and create an immediate out, which is great. Now, who's your ideal client and who can I refer you to? Which is kind of like a way to deflect and say, I'm not the one who wants to be sold to. It's also pretty good if you are being hard pitched to and you want to get out of it, or you are truly not a good fit. That's a great line to use because at the end of the day, I do like making good connections for somebody whose product or service may be a good fit and love making those referrals. So um, that particular process is, it's a way to create new opportunities down the road because now I'm giving them the same opportunity of here's what I do in the marketing space. Maybe I've already seen what you've got going on and it's great, but maybe if you know somebody who could use my services, let's talk about that. And that's prospecting right there without cold calling in the sense of any literally picking up the phone, knocking or sending out mailers, which by the way, I want to talk about the generation and technology evolution. All the principles, George, you had talked about with lumpy mail and using the PS and the signatures and stuff like that. We use that in email marketing and even SMS marketing all the time. That's how landing pages are created. So it's those same core principles, techniques, and copywriting, features and benefits, and just different ways of writing captivating copy that's applied to just new technology. That's it. Even video marketing. So the more things change, the more they absolutely go back to the fundamentals.
One of the things we covered when we did our 9+1 mistakes was not learning the basics. The copywriting of today can be directly traced back to people like Dan Kennedy and prior to him and all these guys. And I have all the books over there, Joe Vitale and all these other people. People think that, again, like you have to learn something, there's some secret or something. The basics still work, guys. Maybe you're reading it on a tablet or listening to it on Audible, but it's the same thing as picking up a book was 20, 30, 50, 100 years ago. People are still the same, man. They want the same things. They're either driven towards pleasure or driven away from something painful or not pleasurable, and you figure that out and you're off to the races with a possible solution for whatever they're looking for.
Yeah, not learning the basics, that was definitely one of the fatal mistakes. I think, because when it comes right down to it, I mean, I reminisce and I go back to Brian Tracy. Top 3% of successful executives have goals. They have goals, and they look at their goals every single day. The very basics. Zig Ziglar. The top 5% of most successful salespeople ask for the sale. The first time I heard that, I was like, that is so simple, but you think you present information and you think that you're just being kind and considerate by leaving it in the other person's court, when actually to lead people to the point where they quote unquote sign on the dotted line, where they actually engage and give you a credit card number, that's a skill. Like, I am not, the whole concept of leaving it up to them, like the ball is in your court, to me, that's like a lazy salesman doing that. A skilled salesperson who is positioned properly is being looked to as an expert. Like I had heard Dan Kennedy say that we basically write prescriptions for people. That's what we do. People don't come to us like to be pitched. They come to us for a prescription. They tell us what their problem is, and we write a script, so to speak, like a doctor would write a prescription for an infection or something viral or whatever. And each of us has prescriptions for the various ailments that we treat. Now, positioning. The first time I heard about positioning was through Dan Kennedy back in the early 90s when he talked about establishing yourself as an authority. Not long after that, I heard Jay Abraham talk about the strategy of preeminence. When you think X, you automatically think Y. When I think car sales, I automatically think Joe Girard. Automatically, I just greatest car salesman in the world. When I think about Toyota and Frito-Lay marketing, I instantly think of Gary Vee, like right away. He is the genius behind both of those brands currently. So, but that doesn't happen by accident. Positioning does not happen by accident. It's an intentional move. Frank Guerin, talk about how the listener can intentionally establish themselves as an expert so the right people come knocking on his door.
Well, I think there's a couple different ways of going that route. One is the Muhammad Ali route, which he said, I am the greatest so many times that people actually believe them over and over. I am the greatest. Well, the audacity and the boldness of that claim is one method. Another method, honestly, for the average person, I'll tell you what, George, when I drove a truck, somebody was an expert when they could get me to where I needed to go without hitting a low bridge. Okay. So this is a metaphor, guys. So bear with me for a minute. If I was delivering from here, New Jersey to Delaware, Ohio, just outside of Columbus, and I needed to get to this one factory that I used to deliver to, I would go into a 7-Eleven or whatever and say, hey, can anybody tell me how to get to, Monsanto or whatever, right? And the guy says, go 2 streets down, make a right, 3 streets, make a left. There, you can get to the other side without tearing the roof off of your truck. That person's an expert in getting me to where I needed to go. I didn't ask him the history of Delaware, Ohio. I didn't ask him, where does this road end? I didn't ask him, can you get me around the world? I just said, can you get me to the next step? Can you get me to where I need to go right now? I think there are people that are experts. They have the knowledge today, and they just don't know that they have what amounts to an expert's worth of knowledge. There's always going to be somebody better, smarter, bigger, stronger, whatever. But that doesn't mean that the average person cannot be considered an expert. I have experts. One of my things as a kid, I used to build truck models because I was either going to be a truck driver or train engineer. That was my career path. And so I had my model train sets, and then I built these plastic truck models that you get at the hobby shop. Well, my dad died, and he used to airbrush the trucks for me. I'd build them, get them to a certain point, go over to my parents' house, and my dad would show me how to airbrush, and I never got it quite down pat. Well, now there's another guy that I know about a half an hour from here that said, hey, Frank, I'll teach you how to airbrush. When you have your first kit done, bring it over, bring the paint, and let's go. He's an expert. Now, he would not claim to be an expert. He would not assume to be an expert. But as far as I'm concerned, for my needs, he is an expert. So the metaphor of all this is people tend to undersell themselves, and they think that either other people have to tell them they're the greatest, or they think they have to say, I am the greatest, which most people will never do because people don't speak up for themselves enough in life, in my opinion, in general. So I'm hoping that metaphor made sense, guys, because that's about the best way for me to explain it.
Excellent. And before we get to Jonesy, let me do a quick commercial for CreateImpactNow.com, a conference coming up at the end of April, the end of next month, April 19th, 20th, and 21st at the Hilton near the airport in Philly. Not in Philly, thank God. So you don't have to worry about parking and the city and all this kind of stuff. If you are within a few hours of Philadelphia, you can easily drive there. If you're within an hour, 90 minutes, you could come each day. But if you're smart, you'll stay at the hotel. You'll get the group rate, stay at the hotel, network with people before and after the conference day. But you'll be able to meet Frank Garrett in person, Jonesy in person, and me in person, and many of our mentors and the people that we work with, people that we respect, people that we've made money with, people that have helped our businesses, and Mr. Ken MacArthur, who is kind of like our lead mentor and a guy that kind of is the reason why we know each other, and he's really the reason why this podcast exists. Otherwise, I would have no reason to do it. I found like-minded people at this mastermind group.
It is probably one of the I can count on one hand the amount of things I call game-changing, and that is one of them. I am missing a hockey tournament to go to Ken MacArthur's Impact event. And anybody who knows me knows that may be the biggest deal of all.
Yeah.
It's like a blood sacrifice, dude. I mean,
right.
Really.
Right.
Oh,
all right.
Speaking of hockey.
All right, go ahead.
No, I was just going to if we're going to keep doing this in my contract, he's either going to have to move that Flyers pendant there, or I'm going to put a Penguins one up back here every episode. So I'm going to talk to my agent about that.
Every time, I am your agent. Every time you request me to take a Flyers thing down, I'm putting 2 more up. I'm going to be like a Hydra. Every time you cut one head off, 2 more are going to spring into place.
Oh, fine.
Great. That's great.
I'll see you and raise you next show.
Yeah. So don't forget, CreateImpactNow.com for the conference next month. Now, to Jonesy, I know you have limited time, and we'll wrap it up after your answer. Finish your positioning talk.
Yeah, so I think one of the great ways to sum up positioning is through a brand. That is how one, either a solopreneur, entrepreneur, an agency, or a massive company positions themselves. You talk about big companies like Lay's and whatnot. Everything has a brand. It is who you are, what you do, what style you speak in, for copywriting, voice, tone, down to the color palette. That is all representative of who you are, what you do, what your values are, and who you serve, and what that transition story is. So that's positioning right there in a nutshell. It's the way that you connect to your audience, because you want to speak to your audience the way they want to be spoken to. And that's representative within the brand itself. So we talk a lot about that within conversion chemistry, which, ideally there is a combination of positioning and prospecting, right? Because you want to be prospecting to the people who are most receptive to your positioning. Geez, I mean, depending on how much time we have, we can talk about, like a brand voice, the color palettes. I love playing around with that kind of stuff. For example, like a luxury, are you a Lexus, or are you, well, we can use Toyota, right? They're the same parent company, but two different positioning. One is luxury and one is everyday consumer. And that's a example of positioning right there. So branding does take a conscious effort. It's not something, even though if you think you have an idea, we have to spend time crafting that message. And, it always kind of goes back to that mastermind we talk about. One of the exercises that we use to help somebody identify what their brand is, who may not know or know what their positioning is when they're starting out, is, first of all, what do you want to do when you wake up? The second one is, what are you known for within your community, your family, your friends, your audience? What are they going to you for on the regular? That could be professionally or could be not. And a lot of times it's not, when someone's making that leap into entrepreneurship or taking that hobby into a business and doing it professionally. I have another example, like the one, like a metaphor Frank came up with. I'm in a car club, so there's a lot of enthusiastic car guys who work on their Mopars. It's a Mopar club. So some of them are into performance, some are into the looks, some are just there for the community. But one fella in particular, he does not even do this professionally. He is the guru, the expert at detailing, all detailing products, what you should do for particular circumstances, for paint corrections, getting swirl marks out, whatever the case may be. We go to him. His name's Chris, and his wife's Lori's car is a, well, now I think she has a 2022, 23 purple Scat Pack Charger. I have a purple Challenger, so it resonates with me. But that's his baby just as much as hers, because of the pride that he uses to take care of it. So he's the detail guy. Honestly, I don't ever remember what he does professionally, but his personal brand is he is the next level detail guy. If that kind of makes sense for,
and that didn't happen by accident. That's
no.
intentional.
Right.
He could very easily turn that into a business, though, couldn't he, Jonesy?
He might have a side hustle with it.
To.
I'm not sure, but the takeaway is that we're always asking him for advice on products and product reviews and stuff like that, and which ones to use over another. And that's it. That's, part of his personal brand, and that's an exercise somebody who's jumping into this can also use. You got to know what people are going to you for, even if you're not thinking about it in that perspective. That's where it starts.
Yeah, as I've heard in the past couple of weeks, a great question is, what have people already given you money for?
Right. And that's actually what we discussed. And I wanted to take it to the other level, which is, what do they ask you for but haven't given you money for? And then can you monetize that, right?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, well, that's a wrap. How can people find you, Frank Guerin?
At conversionchemistry.com, of course. That's my home place now. Me and Jonesy, straight to the top. And of course you, George. So where can they find you, Jonesy? Would it be at conversionchemistry.com as well, by any chance?
I believe it's right there. Conversionchemistry.com.
That mine will be in there next week.
Branding and positioning.
Got to show me up. Yep, always got to show me up. Well, that's why I work with you. I'm big picture, you're the detail man.
Excellent. Well, that's the pod for today. We hope that you enjoyed this.
So if you want us, just hit us up at info@conversionchemistry, or Dan or Frank and we'll get back to you.
Thank you, my friends, and we'll see you next week. We don't even have a name for this podcast yet, but we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.